you're doing it, right? Or hello and welcome to this edition, a very special edition of the DMZ America podcast. It is Sunday, July 21st, 2024. If you're listening to this podcast, you already know the big news that President Joe Biden has announced that he will not be running for re-election in 2024 and gave a full-throated endorsement of Vice President Kamala Harris to succeed him. I'm editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right.
And I'm editorial cartoonist Ted Rall, coming to you from the left.
And, you know, I'm feeling sad, Ted. I'm feeling sad, not for Joe Biden. Fuck Joe Biden. Fuck his enablers. But I'm feeling sad for the country. I feel like I felt when 1974, when Richard Nixon resigned from office. I feel a little sadder then because I was the only dork in my civics class who kept saying a president would never do such a thing, just to show how naive and incredibly stupid I was. But now you, I understand you, last time we spoke earlier in the day, you were working on a column or a piece for the Wall Street Journal. You want to share that with the listeners?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't make the Wall Street Journal,
I'll just read the very beginning, and maybe I'll read the ending too, to tell you where I'm coming from. Poor Joe. No, poor us. Poor United States. Poor Democratic Party. We've been suckered. While we were fearfully obsessing over the ethically challenged Donald Trump, a much more talented grifter, Joe Biden, along with his hidden passel of co-conspirators, conned the electorate, the news media, and most of his own party's leaders out of the American presidency. Biden, I'm going to go skipping to the end here, was elected under false premises. He does not deserve our sympathy. Save your pity for us. He was quote unquote president asterisk, not president. We don't really know who made the decisions in the White House. This is not how democracy or representative government work. Bidengate was the co-option of a major political party, a coup d'etat, and an insidious attack that the American people couldn't defend themselves against because they never even knew it happened in the first place. A stooge was installed, so perfectly ironically, by those who loudly claim to be defending democracy from a wannabe fascist. The Democratic Party traitors who carried out and knew about this obscenity should be held legally and politically accountable.
I agree. I couldn't agree more, Ted. You and I talked about this earlier in the podcast, and an earlier podcast, has even spoken on it on your show on Sputnik Radio. And in fact, 3 years ago, you and I were saying this exact same thing and being screamed at by a lot of different people, all of them protecting the president of the United States. This was, in fact, a coup d'etat. The media was culpable. Now, all of a sudden, they're going, how could this have happened? How dare he? And the fact of the matter is, they were just as complicit as his staff. His staff was running the country, clearly. And now, all of a sudden, Ted, I'm not sure if you've looked at social this last, say, 8 hours, the mainstream media is showing video that they never showed before.
Oh, I haven't seen this.
Of Joe Biden. I never saw the video of Joe Biden being helped off the stage after the debate. It's very sad. Listen, you've dealt with a parent dealing with dementia. I'm dealing with one now. It's sad. So I don't say this with any joy. What I do say it with is, as do you, is a lot of anger. You know, we were lied to. The democratic processes of this country, the Constitution was shat upon by this administration.
Yeah,
and for them to have
people who installed it.
Precisely, and knew what they were installing.
What they did. They installed a dude who came in 4th in Iowa, 5th in New Hampshire, was already showing signs of dementia, was the oldest person ever elected to the presidency by far. I mean, what were they? This is not a situation like Woodrow Wilson has a stroke in the middle of his 2nd term, or Ronald Reagan, who we now have good reason to believe was suffering from Alzheimer's the last year or two that he was president. Okay, in that situation, let's say we'd elected Biden. He was old, but he was okay when it started. And then halfway through his term, things start to go bad. And then the administration's like, well, we're not running for re-election. We can keep this going. We don't want instability. We don't want the Chinese or the Russians to take advantage. We're just going to keep this on the DL the last year, ease him out, and move on. But that's not what they did. they literally decided, hey, we're going to re-up. We stole 4 years. We're going to steal 8. We're going to we're going to do this again. We're going to hide this guy from the from the entire world media, and the entire population through a presidential reelection campaign, so that, and we know that, and to make that even worse, he didn't get sick year 3. He was sick 4 years ago. And now it's like, and then they were like, we want to do this again? Fuck them. I mean, it's like, there's no excuse for it. And the thing is, the way that they behaved, I mean, I know, okay, this was their plan was, well, we'll just shout everyone down, right? We'll cancel culture them. For anybody who dares to speak up, we'll just shame them. And like, you know, that's how it'll work. Okay, so here's the thing. If you take a big gamble, you know, like, you know, you decide to roll Ocean's 11, you're going to hold up a casino, steal millions of dollars. If you get caught, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. Okay. Similarly here, these people should go to prison for the rest of their lives. They made a huge gamble. They fucked up, they lost, and they managed to piss off a lot of people like us while they were doing it. And
not just us,
the voters knew, and they lost the Democratic Party. What credibility do they have now? I mean, think about what a joke it is. The president has a cold. The president has a stutter. The president has jet lag. You know, the president has jock itch. I mean, what?
I was talking to a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours from Chicago, and she was saying all of that bullshittery. I'm sorry. And you're just going, you've got to be kidding. I mean, the jet lag thing, she threw out the jet lag thing 9 or 10 days after
11 days.
11 days after he'd returned to the United States. You don't have jet lag after 11 days. And if you do, it's not jet lag, it's dementia. You talked about hiding him from the world, and they were successful. Don't forget, these guys got away with it for 3 years.
They did. Although
they got away with it.
They didn't get away with it if you were observant. But what I've come to understand,
well, like you and I saw it.
We talked about this yesterday on the podcast, where we said, you know, where I was saying they don't like, I've really come to realize that most people don't really pay much attention to politics on a day-to-day or even week-to-week basis the way that we do. And that's not to say that they're bad, but the point is it explains why a lot of people could be, I mean, you know, you can't really know how bad a debate performance was if you didn't watch it. And that's, I think, and, you know, there's always exaggeration in politics. So that's what happened, right? I mean, it's heinous. This is a major political crisis of epic proportions.
And this is where I hate the Republicans. I hate the Democrats, because whenever they do hearings against the other party, it just gets stupid. But this is one of those instances where I really would hope you could get, if there happens to be one, a sober Republican to chair a committee, a special committee.
James Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, who has definitely engaged in some clownery over the years, has expressed an interest in, first of all, subpoenaing the Robert Hur audio interview that the Biden White House refused to release on the grounds of executive privilege. That was the tape in which the special counsel concluded that Biden couldn't be charged with any wrongdoing for mishandling classified documents because he would be viewed as a well-meaning old man with a poor memory. Let's not forget Robert Hur got insulted. Like when he mentioned the fact that Biden didn't know what years he had served as vice president or what year he had, Beau, his son, had died. And people, again, they said, you know, whatever. No, there's no whatever there. I mean, Robert Hur, we now know, was telling the truth.
And you made a major stink about it, and the pushback on you from, you know, the Democratic Party.
I'm a heretic, Scott. I'm outside the tent. I've gone off the reservation. I'm breaking the rules. Everybody knows that when you lean left in the United States, you're supposed to turn a blind eye to any bullshit the Democratic Party does. You're supposed to ignore it. You're supposed to be like, oh, it's okay if Democrats do it, but if Republicans do it, then you're supposed to shout. And vice versa, Republicans do the same exact thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's like, how on earth are we ever going to have a politics that moves forward in any kind of meaningful way when the absence of integrity is so perfectly 100% on both sides.
So when they have these hearings, and I hope they do, but they're going to become a fiasco. You and I both know they're going to be a joke,
sure.
and which is too bad, because I want to know, when did these assholes know it? And when did they know it? When did, I'd like to get the vice president's ass in there and ask her,
Well,
when did
she
you
needs
know?
to answer that because she's the leading contender to replace Biden. So yeah.
Now, looking down the road, I think the Democratic Party right now, the phone lines between all the DNC executives is burning up, because they don't know what to do, because now the president of the United States, the one who controls all of the delegates, who won every primary save one, is saying that I'm stepping down and they must vote for Kamala. They don't have to, by the way. That's
No, they
not
do
a
not
rule.
have to. They are free to do whatever they want.
But they won't, because if you're, as you know, Ted, you've been a delegate. If you're a delegate, you're a true believer. You're not going to vote against the interest of the candidate you were voted to support generally. But this, going forward, if
However,
the
this is
Democratic
the
Party,
Democratic Party, man. They like to pull the strings. That's how we got into this mess in the first place. They did not accept that Bernie Sanders very well could have been the Democratic nominee in 2020. So they put their thumb on the scale. Jim Clyburn, the 19th century style party boss of Southern Black America, who controlled a giant swath of Black votes, basically orchestrated this kind of unconscionable, scheme, not illegal, but definitely dirty, of having Pete Buttigieg, Beto O'Rourke, Amy Klobuchar, etc.
right?
Maybe Cory Booker. They all flew down to Texas to simultaneously endorse Biden the night before Super Tuesday. And that was the final knife in Bernie's back. And I mean, Bernie did have one unforced error, which is he didn't campaign aggressively enough in the South. But the point is, we'll never really know if the Democratic Party had left well enough alone what would have happened. I doubt that Biden would have been the ultimate candidate who emerged. I mean, he was fourth in Iowa. He was fifth in New Hampshire. I mean,
there was never affection for him within the kind of enthusiasm or affection for him in the party ever. Even when he was the nominee, he was just like, well, old Jot's the guy, who's going to beat Trump. And to his credit, he beat Trump. I've also been watching social this afternoon, how many of these lackeys are now saying, well, good way to go. You just knocked out the only candidate who ever beat Donald Trump. Well, to be fair, Donald Trump has run twice so far.
Yes.
And he's 50%. So you really, and they're most experienced, the most qualified person ever in the history of the human species to be president of the United States, got her ass handed to him by an orange dodo and lost because she was such an awful human being. Oh, wait, True. No, she lost because of,
well, she lost because she was incredibly unlikable, because she refused to apologize for NAFTA, because she couldn't connect with voters, because she had contempt for any voters that had any kind of complaints about losing their job to globalization. Yeah, that's why she lost.
Well, let me ask you this, Ted. I mean, okay, so 1974, Richard Nixon resigns the presidency. Gerald Ford ascends to the higher office, but the Republican Party, this was in August, I believe August 7th, right, when Nixon resigned.
Yeah, it's around there, right? Yeah.
So we are very close to that date. And if you recall what happened to the Republicans that fall in the elections, the midterms, to say they got their asses handed to them would be a gross understatement.
True.
The Democrats got a supermajority in both the House and the Senate, partially responsible because of Watergate. They lost the White House 2 years after that. Looking forward, you touched on it, and I think you're right. People, Democrats in particular, are super pissed off at the Democratic Party because all of a sudden they're going, they knew. Can I go off on a quick tangent here, Ted, and just say, you had two guys here on this podcast fucking knew it 3+ years ago and said it over and over.
We don't always agree on our predictions. And by the way, I want to take a short little victory lap. I did predict.
You did
that it could happen over the weekend, and that it was imminent.
Well, you said the weekend before that too, but we will ignore that.
Well, I did say it could go on.
But you did say that this was going to happen
another week or two. But I said it was going to.
I thought that Biden, from every indication, was just going to hold on with both, bony little wrinkled hands and not let go. I'm not sure what happened over this weekend.
We'll find out eventually.
Yeah, I think it was a number of things, not least of which is this particular strain of COVID it's a really bad stomach flu, is how it presents itself initially. If you believe
for a minute that he has COVID, which I do not.
Oh, really?
No.
Why not?
I think it's a total fucking lie.
You think he just has a bad case of the olds?
No evidence to support that. I think what's been happening for the last 3 weeks since he fucked up the debate, right? He's been trying to, he was pressured by people like us, go out there, have unscripted interviews, show that you can answer questions spontaneously, don't read off the teleprompter, blah, blah, blah. Well, remember, let's not forget the order of things, right? So the first thing he did was that interview with Stephanopoulos. You'll see, I'll be awesome. He wasn't awesome.
No.
Then there was the NATO. He hosted NATO, and there was the NATO press conference. He was not awesome. Could have been worse. Could have been better.
That's a hell of an endorsement.
Then there was the Lester Holt interview, also very less than awesome. And so now, literally, I mean, he just couldn't do it, right? He was never able to hold a town hall or do a real interview and come out of it unscathed, or do a freewheeling press conference with American reporters. He just couldn't fucking do it. Imagine like the White House tour famously that Jackie Kennedy did, where she showed the remodeling of the White House and what she had done to fix things up. And she's just speaking off the hook, walking around and looking at this, looking at that. The first day he mentioned Jerry Ford's presidential breakfast, where he's joking around about waiting for his English muffin to toast. Joe Biden couldn't do anything like that. He couldn't. And so he basically, it was kind of like, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck. Every time I make a public appearance, I only make things worse. I know I have COVID. That's an automatic 5-day vacation. So
you may be right. I mean, who the fuck knows? You cannot trust these people. And that's, I'm looking for, now I want us to turn the lens looking forward.
Yes.
Because we're the podcast that looks forward.
We do.
Well, we look back. We look both ways. You can look both ways. You can look at the history of this and see where he stands and what he did and how he did it and how it stands in contrast to other presidents, or frankly, other presidents who were just as.
This is a grotesque scandal. I mean, this to me is on par with the the election of 1876, where basically the guy who lost was installed in order to allow racism to truly bloom in the South. After and destroy Reconstruction.
Rutherford B. Hayes, though, after his term, he said he's only going to serve one term, and he did it.
Gee, and he did an okay job, I know.
But he's a very good former president, actually. He came out.
Samuel Tilden shamed the Democratic Party, and agreed to relinquish his victory. Anyway, I think this is a massive scandal. Yes. When the truth is known, people are just their jaws are just going to hit the floor. I mean, we need a full-fledged investigation. These people shouldn't be walking free. They're dangerous. I agree.
It was a coup d'etat. It was a takeover. So looking forward, we have hearings, which you and I both hope they have, and they are at least at some degree, actually trying to find. In the
meantime, we have an election to deal with, and
you have an election.
Right now, Republicans are calling for the president to resign, and they're arguing that
the Ted Rall argument.
It is the Ted Rall argument. If you can't campaign, how can you govern? I think they're right. They are right.
No, I agree, and I think
frankly, it would help. It would also help Harris.
Yes, very much, because all of a sudden you're going to be flooded with daily photographs of her in the Oval Office, on Air Force One, addressing crowds with the presidential seal on her,
on the phone with foreign leaders, with allies.
Precisely. I would definitely. I mean, and I don't disagree with their analysis of this. going forwad, the Democratic Party, I don't think anybody trusts. The reason I mentioned what happened to the Republicans in 1974 is it's applicable to today. Well, anybody trusts the Democrats, including Democrats, the Democratic Party, because they knew what they were electing. They knew what they were pushing, and then they got caught. They really thought they could pull this one off, and they damn near did.
And they really thought the American people were stupid. And the thing is, the
they're not
American
wrong.
people are stupid, but they're not stupid forever. You know what I mean? Like they basically, when they turn their attention to a problem or to a situation, they are able to suss out bullshit. It's often way too late, but they are able to catch it.
So, okay, I think going into the convention, are they going to allow the DNC muckety mucks? Are they going to allow anything resembling an open convention, or at the very least,
They'll have to.
I think it was David Axelrod who's recommended an open kind of, regional town halls where you have the 4 or 5 of the top candidates sitting around talking about this.
Okay, so here's, as a former lapsed Democrat, let me just say my problem with this. It's like, so how we got here because you guys repeatedly screwed progressives out of primary processes. Jesse Jackson in 1988, Howard Dean in 2004, John Edwards in 2008.
I don't think they
Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020, and now and this time you screwed also Dean Phillips, RFK Jr., and Marianne Williamson. You cheated and defrauded these individuals. Okay, and like, so now you're going to have a transparent process. Like, who's going to choose when you say like the top candidates? Who's going to choose who they are? It's like, so it's going to be a list that pundits came up with, like Gretchen Whitmer and J.D. Pritzker and Governor Beshear and these Josh Shapiro. These Gretchen Whitmer. Really, those are the people we're going to choose. So like, what about other people? What about Dean? What about Dean Phillips? I mean, he fucking called it out from the very beginning. He was right. He doesn't get a seat at the table. Marianne Williamson got screwed. She deserves a seat at the table, but if she is serious, so the point is, I think the thing is so borked at this point that you can't have a process that comes off as small d democratic. I think it's like no one will trust it. There's been brokers like power brokers like James Carville who are suggesting, respected former presidents like Obama and Clinton could host these town halls. It's like, oh, you mean the 2 guys who are from the right wing of the Democratic Party and who helped screw the progressives like Bernie Sanders? Yeah, no thanks. No thanks. So if they want progressives to be at the table this fall, that's not going to work unless they end up really working, bending over backwards to bring progressives on to the table, which frankly the DNC has a very poor record of doing. I think if they want to do this in a way that makes sense, my advice to them would be, leave it. You've done enough. Just like at this point, just like let the process pay out in accordance with the rules. At this point, all the delegates become unbound. Let the wheeling and dealing begin. Let the would-be prospective candidates go to the convention, meet with everybody's allowed to make public appearances as much as they want. Everybody, they can do that now. They can run ads. But the delegates are all uncommitted. And if most of them all decide to support Harris because of the reasons that you say, which makes sense, then she wins. And but the point is, like, just follow
that'll
the
never
fucking
happen.
rules.
But it won't happen. And you and I both know it. I'm looking at 1968 Democratic Convention. McCarthy knocks President LBJ out of the race. Very similar kind of circumstance, same kind of timing. That LBJ said, if nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve. But McCarthy gets to, and then RFK Sr. jumps in the race. He goes, I'm a person of courage. If I can win, if someone else wins first. It was kind of a bitch thing for him to do. He gets in and he wins California, which makes him competitive at the convention. But the thing is, Eugene McCarthy should have been the nominee, and they fucked him over. Back room, smoke filled back rooms, and out comes, say it with me, Ted, Vice President Hubert Humphrey,
Yes.
who initially was not doing so well against Richard Nixon, but then and because the South was also taken away with the Dixiecrat candidacy of George Wallace, but Humphrey righted the ship and damn near pulled it off late in the game.
And might have if Nixon hadn't treasonously made a deal with North Vietnam.
Well, anyway, so going forward, okay, here, we had to guess, and so far we've been pretty good at guessing.
Yeah, we've been pretty good.
The convention happens in 2 weeks. They don't have
the
3 weeks.
Virtual roll call is in 2 weeks,
which they postponed by 10 days, which was unheard of.
Well, so I'm wondering, will they still want to go ahead with that or not?
No.
They should.
They should if they want to lock in Harris.
Right. But it would be a mistake, I think.
I think so too. And I think they have to.
I don't think Harris should have to.
They have to regain the trust of Democrats, let alone the trust of moderates or centrists, all 5 of them in the United States. And
not to mention Democratic donors who are completely on strike now.
Yeah, they've closed the checkbooks. So if it's Harris, who do you think would be the vice president? You said a white dude. I came to your way thinking.
I've seen some funny memes saying like one of them was a picture of a wine menu, and it's like Kamala's choices for vice president. It's like, white wines. This white wine, white. Yeah, it's going to be a white. Look, here's the thing. It can't be. First and foremost, it can't be anyone who shows her up, anyone who has a lot of charisma, anyone who people would be excited about. It's going to be a Tim Kaine type choice, like bland, boring. So someone like a null, like a Joe Lieberman, a null quantity, right? So I think you're looking at, probably you could do Josh Shapiro. It gets you Pennsylvania. It's got a little bit of history in it because of he's Jewish, a little bit. Alan Bashir from Kentucky maybe gets you the sort of anti-Vance, like hillbilly elegy kind of thing going on. It's going to be someone like that. It's not going to be a person of color like Cory Booker. It's not going to be a woman like Gretchen Whitmer, and especially it's not going to be someone like Gretchen Whitmer who has charisma, and it's not going to be Gavin Newsom who has charisma. It's just not. It can't be.
I think my prediction, if I can go on record now, it's going to be Scott Kelly, senator from Arizona, husband of Gabby Giffords.
He's the astronaut, right?
He's an astronaut, former military guy. The only thing flies in the face of what you just suggested is he does have enormous charisma. I've met him, and he walks into the room and you go, "Holy God, yeah, I'll follow this guy into bullets."
Yeah, so he's
absolutely. So who's the governor of Pennsylvania? I forget the name. That's the
Josh Shapiro.
He's on the short list, which Shapiro, with an ethnic name, a Jewish name, coupled with obviously a woman of color running. Does that create?
Well, it could be a little bit too much, too many Jews in the room, considering that the first gentleman is also Jewish, right?
Is he? Yeah. Well, and so how does that play to the kids who on the campuses and the pro-Palestinian idiots who, from my perspective, I suspect younger voters, but younger voters don't fucking vote. So no,
if Harris, I've done some digging. This is going to be all about policy. Look, this campaign, if I'm advising Harris's campaign cannot be at all based on identity politics. It cannot be based on her story, the little girl on the bus, Black, Asian ancestry, she's a girl. No, it can't. And it can't be about anything other than policy. That's it. You got to come up with 5 great policy positions. 2 of them cribbed from the Republicans to suck the wind out of their sails, and 3 that are popular that nobody's thought of before. So I think, for example, what are Republicans really pissed off about? They're pissed off about high prices. Don't frame it as inflation. Frame it as high prices. If I'm Kamala Harris, I go into crowds and I say, hey, everybody, I'm 60 years old. She's going to be 60 years old like next year. My entire life, prices have never gone down. Anyone here think that prices are ever going to go down, ever in your life? And everyone's going to laugh, right? It's like, she's going to be like, no, prices are never going to go down. We're going to try to keep the rate of increase low. But what we need, the answer, I can't make prices go down, but I can make wages go up so that you can afford to pay things at the new high prices. $25 an hour minimum wage. It brings in some of the Trump populist vote, the people from flyover country, and makes the progressives happy. There's a good argument for it. The minimum wage should be $30 an hour if it had increased in accordance with the official inflation rate since the end of the Vietnam War. It would be $30 an hour.
Should she go full frontal progressive? I mean, Trump goes to his base.
No, she should steal the migrant thing. President Biden closed the border. I'm keeping the border closed. I'm finishing Trump's wall. When Trump said that we shouldn't have open borders, I agree with President Trump. He was right. I'm closing that border. Steal that. There's no reason to. I mean, that shouldn't be a policy that Democrats endorse. Open borders are ridiculous. No nation state has open borders. So so steal that the way that Clinton stole the crime bill and NAFTA and welfare reform from the Republicans. Steal some shit from Trump and then give people less reason to vote for Trump. She's got to be a policy pick. It's got to be all about that. Vote for me. I'm going to directly influence the things that you hate. I'm going to fucking fix this broken Obamacare thing. I'm going to do something, I'm going to go after other stuff like health, like the college tuition is insane. We're going to do stuff to make housing more affordable. We're going to, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's if she goes after those types of topics and is offering actual solutions versus.
Also, we're out of Israel and we're out of Ukraine.
No, I don't think you can do that. I just don't think you can do it. And you don't go out of Israel if you're looking for Jewish donors to the Democratic Party, Ted. You just don't do it. What?
She's more skeptical about Israel than
Biden. That's fine, but you don't turn your back on him. You don't walk away.
You could also there is a middle ground too, right? You can tell the Israelis, look, we're going to continue to be your allies, and if anyone attacks you, we will help you, but we're not sending you any more weapons or any more money. You've had a good year to kick Hamas's ass, and now you're on your own with that. If you haven't managed to finish the job, we have needs back here in the United States we've got to take care of. We have people sleeping on the streets. We have people who can't afford drug rehab. We're gonna, who need help. We're gonna take care of them first.
And she can do something like here's the wonk in me coming out big time, because I draw for the Dallas Morning News as well, and Dallas is handling the homeless problem as well as any city in America.
Yeah,
they are without being assholes.
Yep.
They have criminalized sleeping on the street, but they come up to you. It's very much what New York had begun to do years ago, which was they'd go to homeless people and say, listen, we've got these services. We've got a bed for you waiting here. We've got a meal waiting for you here. Come with us. And if you go, no, I'm not going, I'm waiting for the Kaiser. Well, then they can pick you up and put you away. So, and it's actually had an appreciable effect on the homeless situation in Dallas. What a great move to say, I'm going, fly to Dallas and say, and say, they're doing it right here. You know what? I mean, I don't care what party you are. They're doing it right and it's working. This is the kind of model we're looking for in the Harris administration.
She will fuck up if she makes it like an ethnic play, though.
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, it's crazy. And you can do that to a point. I think there is something, and I mean,
it's not the time. It was the right time for 2008 was the right time to play that card for Obama.
And you don't have to say I'm a a woman, a historic first, a woman running for president. You don't have to say
Look at
that.
her.
It's super obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. Look
given
at
given the
her first
physiology of
name.
our species. Yeah, given the physiology of our species, it's super obvious
Yeah,
that
we know.
um okay,
Oh, also, she could definitely play up the prosecutor shtick.
oh,
Like
she has to do that. She has to do that. I know
it's a
you're going to
great
hate it.
shtick, right? I'll hate it, but it's like that whole like,
Yeah.
Donald Trump is in prison, and I'm the person who puts bad guys like Donald Trump in prison.
There you go. Yeah, that's the line. And I think you put her next to someone like us, and this is where I think Kelly's a good call. First of all, he's from Arizona, so they need Arizona to win. You've
Well,
got Gabby Gifford.
right now, they need some states that they didn't used to need. New York is now New York.
Okay, if New
is
York
now
is
a
in play,
battleground state.
well,
They need New Jersey.
then you're looking at 1984. You're looking at Reagan against Mondale, and this is going to be a bloodbath.
Well, that's likely to be the case. I mean, so okay, so I think so. Here's the thing: it'll probably be her. What do you think she will do in terms of her campaign approach? Do you think she'll follow? I mean, she has to cobble. She has the classic. She confronts the problem that every modern Democratic nominee faces, which is the issue of cobbling together a fractious coalition between progressives and corporatists. How while the Black and Latino vote are bleeding away to the Republicans,
Yeah.
how does she do that?
I think she has to play to her something that I don't know that I've ever seen her do, quite frankly, when she was running for Senate in California or when she was vice presidential candidate. And that is to just project a genuine personal vision. I believe that in her, when all the doors are closed and it's a safe room, I believe she's probably pretty progressive. She's very left leaning, and a lot of her, and I say embrace that and run with it. Donald Trump shows that you can run to your base and continue to. And the fact of the matter is, Ted, the base for the Democratic Party is at least twice as big as the Republican Party.
True. You just have to get people to vote.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. So how do you get them to vote? I think it's a tall order for her because I've said this before and I stick to it. So far, she's shown that she is Hillary without the charm. She's got to get rid of the cackle. She's got to just be
good luck.
Relaxed. I know. Or
I mean, the cackle must be who she is.
Or you do the Ted Rall route, which is the Richard Nixon route, which does work. And that is, here are the policies I'm going to propose that's going to make your life better and make the life of the nation better.
Yeah, just look at the latest, how Gallup constantly asks Americans, what are the top 10 things you worry about the most? And just look at what that is and like knock off the first 5 and come up with solid policy prescriptions.
Right.
I mean, the Democrats, I think, are making a huge mistake by complaining about Project 2025 by the Heritage Foundation, because most people aren't going to read that. But the takeaway that I'm hearing from Democrats is, wow, look at the Republicans. They have a whole plan for what they would do if they were elected. Man, that must be nice to belong to a party like that. Democrats don't seem to have any plan. Joe Biden's only plan was to not be Donald Trump.
Well, and he would also gave a whole list. If you watched in 2020, Biden, which was my first clue that something was wrong, would say, and I'm going to, the Affordable Health Care Act will be fixed on the first day. Women's reproductive rights will be fixed on the first day. Your tire rotations will be taken care of in the first day. And he said the first day, like that was 30 impossible. Dozen times. Of course it is. You have the first 100 days.
But for that, I think she has to have a big majority in the House and the Senate. That's unlikely, right? I mean,
I think you're right. You picked the top 4 issues: immigration, inflation, healthcare, reproductive rights, and you hit those hard.
Abortion's going to be an easy one for her. She's already been doing it.
Yeah, you take a stand and you take a hard stand on those issues. Inflation can be fixed. We can fix inflation, but don't forget, inflation was worse under the orange guy. So let's, and one of the things, and she can also say this, and how do you think this, I mean, this hits my political G spot. If she said, in these deficits we've been running, the monstrously huge Trump deficits have got to stop.
Or what if she was like more credible and talked more like Elizabeth Warren and said, high deficit spending has been, and Nikki Haley said this too, has been a bipartisan problem. And,
Yes.
and like, so I'm not going to just sit there and say, oh, Trump deficits. These are everybody's deficits. And sometimes they were justified and sometimes not, but we've got to really get this under control.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you and I are kind of steering in the same place. It's just how do you get there?
Yeah,
And
yeah, totally.
okay. Well,
so we'll see what happens here.
Obviously.
Yeah. I mean, what is your faith? I mean, we're now about to enter the getting to know you phase with Kamala Harris, right? Like Kamala Harris's favorite cheese is goat. When Kamala sits down with her husband, they love to read the biography of Spiro Agnew. they love to. Their favorite band is Hole. I mean, so it's like we're going to find out all about them. Some of it might be true.
Yeah.
It's going to be like when Gerald Ford was introduced to the public. Like, so by the way, this guy's your president. You didn't elect him. So let's get to know the former congressman from Michigan. So I think it's going to be like that. How is she going to come off? How's she going to come across?
I can't answer that because I thought the rollout in 20 was so bad and she left such a bad impression. And then the first year when they put her in charge of the border and, that interview where they said, are you going to the border? Well, why would I do that? Well, it's where things are. You should go. I haven't been to Europe either lately. And so I was like, what? It was so bad.
It was bad.
And she was so bad.
She was bad.
That they hit her.
Look, hopefully she's learned a few things. We learn to read tea leaves here in this business that we have. And reading the tea leaves is part of the reason that we were right when everyone else was wrong about Biden being senile. And one of my tea leaves that I read is that her staff was fleeing all throughout her campaign and also during her vice presidency. Now that tells me one of two things. Either she's a bitch or people, her staff felt she's being sidelined and therefore I have no future if my wagon is attached to her wagon, which is not going anywhere. I gotta say, I think probably 80% more likely it's the first one.
She's an asshole.
And if the public sees that, that's the end of her.
Right. If that's what she is, because we
already have an asshole. She's running against an asshole. She can't be an asshole.
She's a different kind of asshole too. I mean, it's not like she's not the kind of asshole someone likes. Donald Trump's the kind of ass people love. He's the kind of asshole that guys in the clubhouse like.
Yeah.
That's his appeal. She doesn't have that as far as I can see. I don't know.
You could say it's sexist. I mean, there may not be a type of asshole that, women that people like. That just may not.
I think if they're competent, again, you're right. This is a male, obviously, but Rahm Emanuel won 2 races for mayor of Chicago, knowing everyone in the city, knowing this guy's a flaming dick. And
Giuliani, same thing. We all knew he was an asshole, but we were okay with it. I think Andrew Cuomo, if he wants to be mayor of New York next year, he can be, and people will be like, oh, we need an asshole.
Now with her, and you're right. Is there a sexist element? There's going to be one anyway.
Yep.
So they've got to, I hope that they don't try to soften her up. I'd like to see a Golda Meir versus a,
I think we're both visual people. I mean, I think her visuals look great. I mean, she dresses great. Her hair is great. I wouldn't really change that up too much. I mean, maybe you can do a little nip and a little tuck here and there, but I'd leave the visuals there alone.
No, I would make the visuals put her in serious situations looking like a serious person. Because if you're going to go with, and I agree with you, a policy-driven campaign, you're going to have to project that a level of competence.
But you're
And
also
that's
going
what
to
that
need that
does.
human thing, like, the famous picture of FDR in the 1932 campaign sitting on the railroad track with like coal miners and rail
Yeah.
workers. And you're just like, wow, that's so cool. You're going to have moments like that where she,
Yes. And see how she handles it. That's where the humanity comes in. You know, Hillary would do that, and you could just tell she was incredibly uncomfortable and just came off horribly.
yes.
So I don't know. I don't know what kind of person Kamala is, although I've heard from friends in California that she's not a great person. They do not like her. Many people who worked with her in California no longer do.
Yeah, that's
Um,
bad. I
that
mean, they're
that
going to need to really personalize her and hopefully have it come off as apparently true, right? I mean, they need to go in, she needs to invite the press into her home with her husband and show her like hanging around, like watching TV and like hanging out with her kids. I don't even know if she has kids. I assume she
I
has
don't think
kids.
so. I thought he
No?
had kids. I don't think so.
Oh, really? Oh,
She,
yeah. Yeah, maybe she's but maybe oh, yeah, that's right. She's a stepmom, right? She's
yeah.
Mamala. Remember?
Yeah, which I think is hilarious. I mean,
Yeah.
that can be charming if you have a good relationship with those kids.
Actually, that speaks highly of you if you have a good relationship with your stepchildren, I think.
Yeah, it really does. So, it's going to be the next week is going to be fascinating. I suspect the Democratic Party will fuck over its membership. What do you think?
And define how.
They won't have they won't do any of the open
Well,
primary.
they
They
don't
won't do
have
any
much
of the,
time.
they don't. Well, that's the point. So they're not going to have any of that, but they're not even going to entertain it. It's going to be, okay, he's released his delegates to Kamala Harris, which he can't do, but he's going to do. And
Yes,
that's
I
how
agree.
this
It's
is
going to
going
be
to
like
play
that.
out. Interestingly, at the convention, do you have Biden show up?
Oh God, I hope that Biden resigns soon, like tomorrow. He
That
needs.
won't happen.
You think he'll? Okay, well, you sure you want to go there? You think he's going to finish up? Do you think he's going to finish his term?
Double or nothing. Yeah, I think he'll get fit. Yeah, I think we didn't bet it. Well, we bet a beer. I guess this would be two beers.
Yes.
I
That
would say,
that taste of that
I would
first
think,
beer is already going down nice and smooth.
I think he's going to hold on. They're going to say, he's going to, there's just so much, there's not much time left.
Mm.
So what's the harm? I think American people can kind of probably go, yeah, okay, we can live with that. I think it's wrong. You think it's wrong. You and I agree here on that, but
I'm
that's
not
how
so sure about like what's going to happen here. I think this all has to sort itself out. I think we will know a lot more in a week about whether his presidency will survive. Um, I'm more than 50% thinking he will resign before the end of his term, but it's not. But I'm not at 100% or anywhere close to it. We'll see. All right, so I do think, but I think we're in agreement otherwise. And this is going to be a fascinating fucking
yes.
cycle. I mean, just think about where we were 6 months ago, staring down the barrel of a boring ass rematch between
Yep.
two old former presidents. Not one down, one to go. Trump could.
Oh, he looked terrible. I'm sorry. His convention speech and if you watch the rally, he just blathers, I mean,
That's what he
incoherently. And
always
until
does. I mean, he's
more than
senile
ever
too.
before.
He's just senile in a different
Yeah,
way.
I think you're right. I
We
think
should
you're
get rid
right.
of him too.
Well, I'd like that, but okay.
I mean, really,
From your
truly.
mouth to God's ears. So before we wrap things up, Ted, where can we see things all Ted Rallian?
Please go to rawl.com, RALL.com. There's my radio show, the final countdown, Monday through Friday, 10 to 12 Eastern on Rumble and on Sputnik News. You can go to whowhatwhy.org for the cartoons, and you can go to gocomics.com/Ted Rall. And you and I are both on Centerclip, which is an app that you download on your phone. And Scott, where can we get all things Scott Stantisian?
Well, and on Center Clip, they're like short podcasts, 30 seconds, no longer than 5 minutes. And it's things like today, where you can get short takes on breaking news from Ted and I and other really pretty interesting lineup of contributors. For my work, you can go to gocomics.com/Scott Stantis. You can go gocomics.com/Prickly City. You can go to Chicago Tribune, go to the opinion section, see the cartoons I draw for them. You can go to Dallas News to see the work I do for the Dallas Morning News. And now Smirkonish, William Michael, not William, Michael Smirkonish, in his website. I draw for that now. You can go there, smirkonish.com. And there you go, Ted. So, okay,
Love
the
it.
coming weeks.
All
This
right.
is going to be fascinating. We're going to drop another pod on you probably in the next few days.
Could well be. All right, Scott, thanks for coming on a Sunday at the last minute, and everybody have a great week. Thanks for listening so much. Take care.
You live in interesting times.
Yeah.
Oof.
That's, you've already gotten your wish.